welcome to the channel, The Sinning Saint with Lamar West. So in this series, I'm going to be talking to you guys about just my relationship with God, me being a faith-based person, me being a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ. I have a very unique story, a very unique testimony, a very unique walk with God, a very unique, journey, and I guess you could say more untraditional. I find myself to be more of a spiritual person as opposed to a religious person. Although I am a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. So I think that, this video actually could just be an introduction to myself and my testimony and my story. So for me personally, man, I'm from Virginia. I'm from the South. And if you know anything about the South, it's a heavy Southern Baptist Christian place. You know what I mean? And God was always present. God was always around. Church was always around. You hear people talk about God all the time. You hear people talk about church. You see people go to church 24/7. You see people go to church every Sunday or whatever the case is. And so God wasn't unfamiliar for me. God wasn't taboo. God was something that my parents told me about, talked to me about. It's something that I felt connected to. I do have maybe further down like great-grandparents who were pastors and had churches and stuff like that. And I was baptized at my mom's church in Farmville, Virginia. However, church wasn't something that was forced on me. My parents told me about God. They introduced me to God. But, we went to church when we went. It wasn't an every Sunday thing. It wasn't a, I'm going to Bible study thing. But it was a when we went, And, there may be a few times a year, or maybe once a month after that, just depend where we were at in life and what we had going on. Myself, I was always into sports growing up, so I always had games on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, and things like that. So it wasn't something that we did super frequently, but we definitely went to church for sure. But some reason I always felt connected to God. I always felt unique. I always felt special. I always felt like I had some type of uniqueness about myself, like a different calling. A lot of people always talk about them being different or creative or whatever the case is, but I felt that way, but I never had to tell anybody. Everybody would just tell me that I was different, that I was unique, that I was just, my mindset was different, my thoughts were different, my personality was different, and it just came natural to me. I didn't have to try to be different. I didn't have to try to be unique. I didn't have to try to be in my own lane. Like I just naturally, for some reason, was always there. You know what I mean? And I never knew why. I never had an understanding of why that was, but I feel like later I would come to realize and figure out why. I always found myself being ahead of the curve. So a lot of things, whether it was business or school or my faith or mental health, I always was talking about these things at a young age. When people weren't talking about it, like I was talking about mental health when I was a kid. I'm 28 now, but I'm talking about when I was 9, 10 years old, I was talking about mental health. I was 9, 10 years old talking about I want to own businesses and be an entrepreneur and have generational wealth. I was talking about my spirit and things like that at a young age, and I never really understood why. So, I went through life, say my teenage years was being into sports, being into girls, being into hanging out with my friends and stuff like that, being fly like everybody else. And I think that at that time, I knew my faith, I knew my belief system, but I didn't really necessarily have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I would pray every day, things like that, but I didn't have a personal connection. I had a connection, but I didn't nurture that connection. I didn't nurture that relationship yet at that point. So a lot of my desires were worldly desires. I desired to have, to be rich. I desired to have the nice cars and nice clothes. I always dreamed of being rich and having a big house. I dreamed of those things. I dreamed of just, what was put in my face, having a lot of women, things like that. But it was something that wouldn't allow me to actually fully engage myself in those things. So there was something that wouldn't allow me to fully submit to those things. I was never actually driven by money. It was something that I looked at like, man, I would love to have a big house. I would love to have these cars. But it wasn't something that I actually felt like I'm about to go by any means and get this money. I'm about to go out here and hustle, do it legally or illegally. Like it was something about me that was like, man, I liked the idea of money, but I didn't really worship money or value money that much. And it was the same with women. It was like, I was able to get a lot of women. I was fly, handsome guy, whatever. But and I like the idea of having a lot of women. I like the idea of, oh, the prettiest girl in school or the prettiest girl in town or whatever the case was. But it was something in me that wouldn't allow me to actually engage in like being a player or like hurting women or just having sex with a bunch of women or whatever the case was. Like, I like the idea of, yeah, I'm about to hang out with this girl and maybe we can have sex. But then when the time comes, it's like, I don't really want to do this. It was something that was rejecting it. Something about my spirit that was rejecting, like, I'm not about to just be out here having sex with everybody. I'm not about to be out here just having a whole bunch of girls or whatever the case was. So, but I didn't understand why. And at a young age, that can make you feel like less of a man. It can make you feel like, okay, well, the world is telling me having money, having power, having respect, having women is what makes you a man. And then to me, I'm like, for some reason, it didn't align with my spirit. And I remember one time I had an African American literature class and I was talking to my teacher. We were having a debate. We were talking about what makes the ultimate man. And the whole class was saying, the example they used was Tookie Williams, who was the creator of the Crips or leader of the Crips or whatever. And they were saying like, oh, like he's the ultimate man because he was able to beat up anybody. He was strong. People were scared of him. He had respect. And I do think he had man leadership qualities, like man qualities, which would be like his leadership and him having a vision or a plan. Like, I think those are man leadership qualities. But I don't think that just having fear or having respect or being able to beat somebody in a fight makes you a man. You know what I mean? So to me, I remember I had an open debate where I said, nah, I don't agree with that. I thought the ultimate man was Jesus. That's what I told him. I think Jesus was the ultimate man because I think that Jesus led from multiple different facets. He could be patient. He could be empathetic. He could strategize. He could plan. He could lead by example. He was willing to sacrifice for what he wanted. I thought that made Jesus the ultimate man. This was before even the Bible told me that. This was just me personally. I'm like, nah, I don't think that. I was like, I don't think that Tookie Williams is more of a man than Obama because he could probably beat Obama in a fight. You know what I mean? Or maybe more people feared him than Obama. But I didn't think that. You know what I mean? I didn't think that made him more of a man. So it was something that I wrestled with, I would say probably until I was, probably until I was like 23, 24. I wrestled with what a man is and what culture and society says a man is versus what I felt in my heart and my spirit what a man was. Because even in college, you see everybody turned up, they drinking, getting lit, whatever, having sex with everybody. And I'm like, it sounds fun, it seemed fun, but I don't really want to engage in that. And a piece of me might have wanted to have that. I might have looked at everybody like, dang, like, how is it so easy for these people to just engage in this and do this? But for me, it gave me conviction, it gave me shame, it gave me guilt, right? So I wrestled with it. I struggled with like, man, like, why does it make me feel a certain way? Like, why is it not as attractive to me? You know what I mean? And I think that little did I know is because I was a vessel. So my story was that when I was 16, God revealed himself to me in a dream. And when God revealed himself to me, I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it meant, and my life was changed from that moment on. Like, changed forever. There was no question. My whole life at that point, I woke up that morning and my life was dedicated to telling the world about how great God is. Point blank, period. But what I didn't know is that the things that were still inside of me didn't just evaporate. So my outlook changed, my perspective changed. But there were still internal things that, say, trauma that I had been through that was still in me that didn't just evaporate overnight. There were still things that I had been seeing my whole life with women, with money and success that I had to learn to replace those worldly things with godly things, right? And I think that when you first get introduced to God or he reveals himself to you, you're so on fire for God. It seems like every prayer gets answered. It seems like your spirit is on fire. It seems like everything is just coming easy to you. So once that fire dies down a little bit, because say you start to go through things or he starts to not answer your prayers as quickly, those things in you that you didn't necessarily heal or fix, that trauma or those desires, those things start to creep back up because they see it as a way of like, okay, you're slowing down in this area right now. You're not as on fire as much because the enemy knows, or the trauma knows, the internal spirits or energies or demons or whatever you want to call it knows when he on fire for Jesus, when she on fire for Jesus, it's nothing that I can do. It's nothing that I can do. It's nothing I can tell this person. But when you start to question, or when you start to doubt, or when you start to go through hills and lows and valleys, that's when it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm still here. This is my chance. So I started to go through different things, especially like toward end of high school, leading into college, to where I'm questioning, like, why am I seeing more success from other avenues? So I put out my first book at 18 when I was in college. I mean, high school, or 17, 18. It did well. It won some awards. It got me like a lot of local notoriety, and it sold well. It did good. It was a success for a 17 or 18-year-old for sure. And you know, I still question, like, man, like, but why is the local athletes, or why are the local rappers, or why are the local drug dealers getting more love and attention than I'm getting? Well, it seemed that way. It wasn't true, actually, because I was actually getting a lot. For me to be doing something and being in local newspapers and getting notoriety, the success or the attention was the same, but to me, it didn't feel like it, because I'm like, I didn't even think it should be the same. I thought that I should be up there. I really did. And it might have been arrogant of me, but I really thought that. So, I think that I started to question, not God, but question why, if I'm doing your work, if I'm being a vessel, if I'm doing good things, and why are people who I see doing necessarily worldly or evil things, not sports and nothing like that, but just other people, why are we on the same level? Why am I not getting more love or more accolades or more support? Why are we on the same level? If I'm doing good and I feel like they're doing something that's against you, why are we here? Why does it seem like we're here? And I think that made me question things. But I remember my mother telling me one time, it was something I'll never forget. She just sat me down and said, don't ever question God. And it held so much conviction in my heart, my spirit at that time, because I was questioning, like, God, like, why you want me to, and maybe my intention was wrong. Maybe I'm like, I had to check myself, like, why do you care about that? Like, why do you care about the validity, the success? Why do you care about that so much? But it just, I had to really, I questioned myself, like, why am I questioning God? And little did I see, or little did I know what was to come, was there were specific people who I was looking at, like why? Like, what's going on here? And those people, I saw them go through traumatic, terrible things. And I'm like, man, not that they deserve those things at all, but it was like, man, do I want to ever go through that? Do I want to have to face that? Or like, maybe it wasn't longevity in these things that I was looking at as to like success at that time. Like, it wasn't longevity in being the local superstar drug dealer or whatever the case was, you know what I mean? So I really learned a lot during that time. And then going through college is like everybody turned having sex or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I was getting turned. I was doing my thing or whatever, right? But it never felt like home for me. I was hurt most through college. I was depressed more through college. I was depressed a lot because that's my environment, that's my surroundings. And it was the funnest time of my life, but it was the saddest time of my life too, because I felt no fulfillment from the things that I was doing. You know what I mean? And but long story short, it was like, I think something that I came to realize later in my 20s is that, just because you love God, just because God revealed himself to you, or just because you became a Christian, a lot of those things that were in you didn't just go away. You still have to replace those things with healthy viewpoints, healthy behaviors, and healthy desires. And if you don't, those things can creep up on you, and it'll hurt you even more, because it'll make you feel like, man, if I love God, if I know God, if I'm whatever, why am I even battling with these things now? You know what I mean? It'll hurt you even more because you know better, as opposed to having these thoughts or these feelings or these accolades that you want or whatever. When you don't know any better, you don't feel any conviction from that. But when you know better, you feel conviction. These things hurt you more. When you do things, it brings you more guilt and shame. And I think that replacing those things are very important. So it's very important to nurture your relationship with God. Be patient with your relationship with God. And I think that's something that I wish I would have known, because I got on fire for God and I was just like, I wanted everything like this. I wanted everything, you know what I mean? And I feel like I should have took time to nurture my relationship more, which could have eradicated or rectified some of the struggles that I had and the traumas that I had been through. You know what I mean? Because those things only come back stronger, when you actually know better. They come back and they pull on you more. It makes you it's more damaging, and it costs you more. So, I would encourage people who are getting into God, getting into their relationship with Jesus, getting into their spirituality, to be patient and loving and nurturing with yourself and with your relationship with God. Because you have the rest of your life, you know what I mean? And that relationship isn't going anywhere, so it's important for you to just nurture that. Nurture it. Like, nurture those moments, nurture those times when you're first getting introduced to God. You know what I mean? And don't be too hard on yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to all of a sudden become a overnight preacher. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing, when you get into God, a lot of people will be like, oh, you're still going to be a preacher now? Or you're going to do this and that? And it's like, yo, let me develop. Let me develop my relationship with God. Let me develop my character. Developing character is so important. So important. So important. And that's part of my testimony. I'm going to share my testimony because I have so much more to talk about with so much more. But that's just a little part of my testimony. And I have much more to talk about. And hopefully you guys keep coming back and watching this series and watching this, and we can grow together, and I can talk to you about my relationship with God, spread the gospel, and be a vessel. So make sure you like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and look forward to my next video.